Hi, I'm Kyle.
I'm Josh.
This is Two Guys, One Car.
Welcome to our car.
Dude, it starts with Two Guys, One Car. That's the name. It should start
It's
with
welcome
the
to our car.
name. No, but it has to start with Two Guys, One Car because that's the name of the thing.
Just get in the back seat.
Ride along with us.
Dude, thank you for coming on. I think the first thing I'm curious about is like when I first asked you to come on the pod, you're a bit reluctant, but then you when you said yes, you were like, let me do it my way with my cameras, my mics. Like what was the drive behind that?
Not to say I'm a perfectionist, but if I'm gonna do something, I want to do it right. Like the other day, I'm doing a corporate thing in Melbourne next week, and I was just talking to the guy who had kind of hired me, and we had talked about it. We sort of talked about what I needed to do and what I was going to give him and the cost of it. And then he was like, "Oh, could you just like put that all in writing so that we've just kind of got it?" And then I went through and I wrote this like long email detailing every possible thing about the shoot and every like breakdown of all the cost detail, and I sent it to him, and he was like, just kind of needed like just a you could have just sent me the quote, that's fine. And I was like, well, if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it right.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, so you seem to be like, you like to do things perfect.
I mean, I try to.
Yeah, and then based off our basic level 1 quality stuff, you went, nah, I'm gonna do it my way with the gear. And like even like we just met, so to see this like knowing that the only thing I knew about you was that I tried to know as least as possible, but the only thing I knew that was that you wanted to actually do your full setup. And I was like, I respect that so much. Like, that's so cool. You just come in guns blazing. And like to see it now, it's just like, you're definitely a perfectionist and you're also a professional.
Yeah,
that's 100%.
So for people that are watching this, you will probably notice a visual difference. And for people only listening to this, you're probably going to hear a very major audio difference. And that's because we're using tens of thousands of dollars of very real film equipment that I own.
Yes.
That you very generously allowed us to use.
And
this.
what's funny is that like me and Josh, like whilst you've set up over the last like 30 minutes, me and Josh had just been sitting in the back, just like all nervous. Like I just
nervous
feel
about
like
what? This is your podcast.
Yeah, I know. That's what was funny because we're like, I just feel like it's just like, but it's like you're doing it with us because it's like you're setting up all the equipment and stuff like that.
I almost think it's the change as well because we're so used to us running the show essentially. Like, not that there's much to set up, but we'll set up our phones. The guest sits in the back. We sit in the front usually, but it's like we're in the back. We just sat here whilst you set everything up, and then you're the one that's like, cool, we're ready to go. So it's interesting because yes, it's our podcast, but you were also the one like running the show of like, cool, now we're rolling.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I'm used to anyway. I'm used to showing up on set, having to set up all the lights and the cameras and the sound guys, and it's always waiting on the crew being like, yep, cool, we're ready to go. And then the director usually will be like, all right, let's go. So
yeah,
I was just giving you the cue to say, let's go, because you're in charge.
Yeah, it was just funny because I feel like I'm not. I feel like I'm not in charge.
And we're in the back too. That's something people will notice. It's the first time we've actually been in the back. I actually kind of like it.
I like it.
It's cool, but I do feel like the guest being in the back, which is a little bit odd.
I think the cool insight as well, it gives you a bit of insight into like the production aspect of it. And it's like, oh, like one day if we level up, it's like...
When we level up, sorry.
When we level up, yes, sir. This is like what it will kind of look like. And it's like, that's so cool to know, like have a visual representation of what a goal is for us. It's like cool, like getting this camera, getting the audio recorder, like tangible things that it's like, okay, that's where we want to be.
And you don't have to have tens of thousands of dollars of camera equipment. You can start with a cheap DSLR that you get from Gumtree or Facebook Marketplace or something. You know, I've got multiple of those that, you know, you really only need 1080p.
Yeah. And like from what I can tell is like obviously you're a professional, so maybe you could kick off by saying like what do you actually do? Like what are you doing with your time?
I would say I'm a professional filmmaker, which comes annoyingly in very many assets.
So are you saying it's a bit more like it's general, so it speaks to like different things?
Yeah, look, in the future, I would love to just do cinematography for TV and movies. I'm kind of doing that. I'm working on a 6-episode comedy series at the moment as director of photography.
Wow.
But outside of that, I do kind of everything. And the difficult part of the film industry is that, I mean, I guess it's like a lot of industries, but particularly the film industry, it's been said, it's more about who you know than what you know. So a lot of the jobs that you get are recommendations, which means you're only really going to get jobs if you know a lot of people and have worked with a lot of people, which also then means when you're starting out, you don't really know anyone.
It's like a weird paradox of like you just can't get anywhere because you don't know anyone.
You don't know anyone, but then because you're not getting work, you're not getting to know anyone to get more work.
Correct.
Which makes it really difficult, which means I graduated a little bit over a year ago from film school, and since then I have said yes to every opportunity. I don't think I have turned a single one down, because in my mind, even if it's a project I'm not passionate about, I'm meeting people and I'm working.
You get a contact through that.
And annoyingly, a lot of it also is free work, because again, it's about getting yourself out there and getting the experience for your portfolio to show people, yeah, I'm good enough for this, you can pay me for it. And it's only, a year in now that I'm only just starting to get proper paid work.
Which is awesome.
So pretty much for the last year, I've been doing it for free.
Which is
with all
wild.
this thousands of dollars a gear.
With tens of thousands of dollars a year that I saved up from my previous jobs and had in my bank account, and I have spent it.
Yeah.
Dropped it all.
Yeah, the cool thing there, though, is, like, from the outside perspective, as hard as that is to work for a year kind of unpaid, it almost weeds out and gives confidence for you knowing that, like, if you're still there by the end of that year, clearly you want to be there. Like, if you're getting up for a year and doing free work and chasing, like, trying to meet people and just get jobs, like, the fact you're doing that for free shows that clearly, like, this is where you want to be. Whereas I think a lot of other people will go into careers and, like, just because the money's good, even though they hate the job or hate the career they're in, they'll just stay there because, it's comfortable, it's good money. But for you, clearly, like, you want to be.
Yeah. Well, I guess it speaks to your why. You know what I mean? Like, you're not doing it because, like, yes, it's obviously an income and whatnot, but you're actually doing it because you love it. You know what I mean? Like, and I feel like what you're saying is, like, it's just a real good teller of being like, this is the reasoning for why I actually want to be here doing it, because you're doing it for no financial gain, just for that connection.
Yeah, I'm not giving up.
Yeah, 100%. It's that commitment, which is probably the most important thing, right? Because how are you going to do it if you're getting no money and whatnot? Like, you need to be able to do it now. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to do it later.
So what does the first year kind of look like? Working for free, obviously you need money to live. Like, what were you doing for a source of income?
So before I started film, before that I did acting, and before that I did remedial massage therapy, which, that's usually the reaction I get.
That's so cool.
You think it's cool. A lot of people are like, why would you ever do that? What made you want to do that?
Well, I think it's more not so cool,
It's
but
just
it's
different.
interesting.
It's
Like,
different.
how did you end up
totally
on
weird,
that?
especially considering, like, I was one of the youngest people there. Most people that go to study massage are sort of middle-aged and have been working in corporate for 20 years and decided they were like, no, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm going to go do something that benefits people. I want to do massage.
Wow.
Whereas I just kind of did it, not straight out of school. I had a gap year, but essentially straight out of school. And I did that because I had a gap year, worked in a cafe for a year, and kind of just needed to pick something to do. I didn't know what I wanted to do. All through high school, I played piano, so I had strong hands, and I liked working with my hands, and I knew that I hated anything to do with theory. I didn't want to go to university, which is why I didn't. And I thought massage would be easy, because they'd be like, do this, and then I'd do it, and then I would get a degree in money. Unfortunately, I had to learn all of the anatomy of the human body, more than just bones and muscles, to learn how everything. I felt like I was starting to be a doctor.
Yeah.
It's a lot more work than you would expect, but it's just because I like doing things
Properly.
practically. I can't sit and read a textbook
You like
about
to be more
law.
hands-on.
That my brain just can't do that. So I pretty much have run my own massage business, which got me through acting school and film school.
Whoa.
And then I've been doing that for the last year, and I've only recently kind of stopped doing it because I've started
Been
earning
able to
enough
make
to be
money.
able to pay rent. Yeah.
Which is huge. Like, that's a massive progression, because we're kind of in that phase where, like, we still have jobs to bring us, like, a weekly income whilst we're working on our side projects that hopefully in the future we'll be able to monetize and leave those things. But, like, you're at that stage where you've left that and now you're able to make an income through the career that you love.
Did you like recognize that as a phase? I'm interested to see, like, were you like trying to get to that point where you needed to stop, where you were like ready to stop doing it? Was that something you were like conscious of?
What,
or did you
massage?
yeah, like just, well, any other side jobs, like, were you conscious of, like, I want to get to a point, well, obviously you want to get to a point where you don't do that anymore, but were you really like getting more and more conscious? Or was it like one day you just went, oh, I could actually stop doing this, I'm fine, I'm earning enough money, like doing my other projects?
No, I always wanted to stop doing it.
Yeah, so you were just like waiting for the day, and then it came,
Yeah.
and then
Oh,
you
I
just
was
went,
doing it to pay my way through school because annoyingly the government doesn't like to fund arts schools.
Gotcha.
So studying acting, I had to pay all of it every month, pretty much up front.
Jeez.
Not the whole course up front before I started, but every month we had to make a payment of multiple thousands of dollars. And that continued through to film school up until my very last semester. So my last 2 terms were covered by the government.
That's it.
But outside of that, I've paid my way through it, and that's how I did it.
Damn.
So I would have very long days. I'd wake up at 6 a.m. to get the bus into school. I would get home at probably around 6:30 p.m. very quickly eat dinner that my lovely mother made for me, and then I would rush to work. Usually start at 7:30 and work till about 10.
Wow.
And
Depending on how many clients I had, but usually.
And then wake up and do it all again.
Yep.
That's
Pretty much every day of the week.
That's commitment.
Damn.
That's so awesome.
That's huge. So with acting, like, is that something you want to do in the future, or like you've moved
I'm
away
still
from?
doing it.
Yeah.
It's I don't know how to answer this without going into like a huge backstory about kind of like my whole arc of like my
Go into
it. That's what we
kind of,
we want you to do that.
Yeah, because a lot of my life it comes full circle. Hindsight's always 20/20. You look back and you're like, oh, it's so obvious, but at the time it wasn't obvious at all. So if you stick with me for a second,
yeah, go on.
This will make
definitely.
It will help,
all ears,
and I think it will be helpful, hopefully, to some people. But the earliest example I can remember is when I was a kid. I was like 10 or 12 or something, and we went to church. A really, really small church, probably only like 100 people, probably less than that. My dad bought a photography camera, and he would take pictures of the church events, like any of like the, I don't know, barbecues or outdoor movie nights or stuff. He would take the pictures and turn them into like little movies, where he'd put it probably in like Windows Movie Maker, put the pictures in, chuck on the Ken Burns effect where it zooms in on the photo and
Windows Movie Maker. I remember that thing.
Yeah, it's great. Old. And just use photos that would like pan in slowly, hold on that photo for 5 seconds, and then crossfade into the next one. And that was his videos for the events. And I would always watch it and be like, "This is cool that you're choosing to do this and volunteer to put your time into this. But it could be so much better. Why would you not use video? It's more interesting to watch." We went on a family trip to Perth, and I got my phone and I pretty much filmed everything, and I ended up editing it together into like a 3-minute video. Probably not the best work I've done. I haven't looked at it in years, but I just kind of did it just because I wanted to do it. And then I went through high school, didn't know what I wanted to do, couldn't figure it out, had a gap year, worked in a cafe, went and studied massage because I thought it was practical and I'd be good with my hands, which is what I did. And part of doing that degree, I obviously had to have a job to help pay for things while I was doing that because I couldn't do it yet. So I had a job, and towards the end of my degree, my boss from my job, which was a removal company, so physical labor, my boss said randomly in a text one day, "Can you sing?" And I was like, huh? He's like, "Could you like sing or like dance or anything?" And I was like, I had some singing lessons in high school. Like,
some context,
I'm
please.
musical. Yeah. I play piano, but like can't say I'm really a singer or a dancer. And he's like, "Well, I produce amateur local musicals. We're putting on Wicked, and we need more boys in the cast. We have way too many girls." Wicked had been the only musical that I'd seen, and I had loved it. So I was like, you know what? Sure, I will jump on board for that. So I showed up to the first rehearsal. Didn't have to audition, I just showed up. And I just got thrown in the deep end. And I just kind of had to try and pick it up because I joined probably like 3 weeks into the rehearsals. So I had no idea what's going on.
So you're already behind?
Everyone's already made friends. They've all known each other from previous shows. I don't know anyone, but I kind of had to throw myself into it. And I stuck with it, got through, did the show as an ensemble and loved it. And so then I was like, I want to do this more. So I auditioned for the next show they were doing, which was Be More Chill. And I got a side lead role. Like, it was a character that had some lines and some verses, but nothing major. And I got that role, so I did that in Be More Chill. And then I went and I did another musical. I did Bring It On as the lead male in that one. The company that I did Be More Chill with, they wanted to do it again because it was super popular. So I did it again. After doing that, I was kind of like, I kind of like doing this and I want to do it more, which is what got me into acting school. So I auditioned for a musical theatre course and I got in, but there wasn't enough people to put the course on, so they chucked me in with the Actors for Screen. Part of that acting for screen course is that they would teach us how to use cameras so that we could learn to film our own screen tests and show reels. Because if you go in the industry, show reels are super expensive. They cost thousands of dollars. And if you can do it yourself, you're saving yourself thousands of dollars and you're going to get an agent. So part of the course is learning cameras. And then it turns out I like this more than acting and singing.
Wow.
So it actually, you'd gone into it like, this acting thing, I'll just give it a shot.
Yep.
And then you nailed that. And then you find this other thing off the back of that.
Mm-hmm.
And you're just like, this is even better.
Even
That's
better.
So cool.
Then I did a year in the acting school and then transferred over to the film school that was in the same building, but kind of a separate school. And then I did a year in the film school, which is what I graduated with last year.
Wow.
So things kind of go full circle. And then looking back, I'm like, so when I was a kid going to church with my dad, and I would see him taking pictures, and I was like, good pictures and stuff, but also it's not an interesting movie.
I want to make that better. Yeah.
I want to make that better. Going to Perth, taking a video and editing it together. I'm like, it's so obvious in hindsight, and yet, that's 10 years of progress that I just didn't really pick up on. It's taken years I'm 25 now. I graduated when I was 17. So 8 years, 6 or 7 until I got into the film school. But, it takes a lot of time out of high school. And when I was in high school and people said, what do you want to do with your life? I was like, I don't know. And they're like, cool, that's fine. It takes time. And I was like, well, I have to know. I have to go to university. And I was always so jealous of people like my sister who wanted to be a teacher from when she was in primary school. She had great primary school teachers who was like, I want to be like them. And that's what she knew what she wanted to do. And I was like so jealous of her because I wanted that. And I just never knew what it was. But for some people, it's going to take time. And that's fine. You'll find it. And it doesn't have to be a job. I think I'm very lucky that my passion is going to be my career.
Yeah.
But for other people, like a lot of the guys that you've talked to on previous episodes of the podcast have been, they do jiu-jitsu or boxing.
Yep.
That's their passion. They love it. And however they stumbled upon it, that's what they want to do. And they'll have a job so that they can pay for things because that's life.
That's how it works.
But, I think everyone has a passion. You just kind of have to find
That's so
it
cool.
and let life give you time to find it. Because you'll find it eventually.
Yeah. I think it's amazing as well how for you, the start of it, like it was nothing you did really. It was the guy asking you, like, do you want to sing? And it was you saying yes to that opportunity that inevitably led to everything. But it's so amazing how it was just this opportunity that came about. And I think the most important thing that people can take from that is just saying yes to new experiences, because that's often where you find passions. I'm reading Cam Haynes' book at the moment, like one of the best bow hunters in the world. And what got him into bow hunting, his stepdad was a hunter with rifles, and he would take him out. But one of his friends in school, Roy Roth, he would ask him constantly to go bow hunting, and he had no interest in doing it. But then one day he said, sure, I'll give it a shot, and ended up loving it. And at that time in his life, he had no direction, no passion, just nothing. He was he calls himself a loser. And as soon as he went bow hunting, he's like, this is me, this is what I'm doing. And here he is 30, 40 years later, one of the best, most accomplished bow hunters in the world. So you're not necessarily going to know what it is. And some people know what they want to do from day one. I want to be a teacher like your sister. But I think for those people that have no idea, it's just trying new things is really the way you're going to figure it out. It's if you're doing the same thing over and over, you're gonna get the same result every single time. So just try to do something else. If you've never done anything, go join a rock climbing gym, join a book club, just start going walking in the bush, try and meet people and just try and do new things, and that way it'll bring forth.
Because even if it's not even if say you go to a rock climbing gym, like you said, even if you don't end up rock climbing, I think it's just the pursuit of you trying to find a bit more that sort of passion. That's what it actually comes down to, is you actually pursued that, and that can take you to the next step. For you, it was just saying yes to that opportunity, acting, and then because you pursued that, then the film and all that stuff came up through that. So it's if you didn't actually just pursue it in the first place, it wouldn't have even come up. Another interesting thing you mentioned as well, how you talked about how people find their passion, but it doesn't actually necessarily mean a job. That's something I've actually never thought about before, because I think I study economics and stuff, so my brain is just wired to that. So it's just passion equals money. Do you know what I mean? It's wired to thinking you should be using your passion to make money. That's how I'm wired. But I should actually challenge myself to think a bit more like that. Just because you're passionate about it doesn't mean it needs to be financially viable, if you know what I mean. You can just actually do it for fun and make money on the side. I guess it is a good thing to try and make some money off it, but it doesn't need to be like that. You can still do it in your spare time.
Yeah, I think if you're not going to make money through your passion, you need to change the perspective of your job and your income, because I think there's so many people that have their passion but can't monetize it or haven't monetized it, and then they have a 9-to-5 Monday to Friday that they hate, but they do it because they have to live. And it's okay, well, why do you hate it? Let's look at that, break that down a step further. And it's well, because I don't love the job. I want to be fishing, or I want to be doing this, whatever it is. And it's well, you need to understand that that fishing might be your passion. The Monday to Friday isn't your passion source. That's just money. So that's just a way of living. That. So it's almost rearranging it in your mind. What do you get from the job? And I think once you can understand that, okay, the Monday to Friday isn't the passion project. That's what I do on my weekends. So the Monday to Friday is purely just me getting income, and you can almost start to enjoy your work a bit more then, because you're oh, I'm not meant to love this. If it's here to provide for my family, I'm not meant to love it every day. It's a job.
It's okay to not.
It's okay to not love your job to that extent.
Definitely.
I think it is good to always try to find something you love and try to monetize that if you can, because who doesn't want to be doing what they love every single day?
Did you have any doubt, like knowing that you had the massage stuff and that was your own thing and that was obviously doing well enough? Did you have any doubt with like the filmography stuff that you could be like, oh, that's always a fallback for me? Or do you never think that?
I think with a lot of things in life, it's kind of just about sticking to it. And maybe it's me being a little bit cocky, but I feel like it's something I can do quite well. I kind of was like, look, my stuff is good enough. It might not be the most amazing. I've had feedback being like, yeah, there are better ways that you could do it. And there always is going to be better ways that you can do it. But that's life. It's all about learning, getting better, making mistakes, and looking at it, being like, oh, I could have done that better. And then doing it better next time. And that's how you just inevitably get better and inevitably get good enough to be paid for it.
I think that's also the difference between cockiness and confidence. Because you were saying maybe it's cocky. I don't think it's that. I think it's confidence. Because the fact that you're willing to take feedback means you're confident in your own work, but you're not married to it. So if someone has like a better idea or something that can improve you, you're willing to
totally.
take it on.
Yeah.
Like that's just confidence
And
in your own work.
yeah, just believing in yourself. And one cool thing as well you said like earlier on was like, I'm going to make it happen. I'm not going to give up. And it's that like perseverance you absolutely need to be successful in whatever it is you're doing, because it's inevitable that there's going to be so many setbacks, but like you clearly have that mindset of just keep going. I'm going to get there. And especially when it's something like your work it's a skill to like do what you do. So the more reps you do, the more you refine that skill, the more you hone in, and like you're only going to get better over time. So this you said you're working on a comedy series at the moment. Like we've spoken a bit about this off cam, but like just give us an insight into that, because when you told me about that, I found that really interesting.
Okay, so this comedy series that we're doing, it was created by one of the guys that I went to film school with, one of my good friends. His name is Jano Rolling. He is Dutch. He's got a weird name. He came up with this concept and he pitched it to me while we were still in school. So over a year ago. He was like, he's one of these people that I just constantly think, how does your brain work? Just one of those like so bizarre. Some of the things that he thinks of is just fascinating to me, because I'm not a writer. I can't write. I've tried so many times and I just am not a writer, and that's fine. He's definitely a writer because he can come up with the most bizarre things and make it good. So in film school, he came up to me at one point while we were working on all of our thesis films, and he was like, I've got this idea. And I was like, we're currently working on all of our ideas. He's like, no, I've got this idea for like the future. I don't know when we'll do it, but we'll do it. Here's the pitch. It is the Roman gods that lose their powers and have been sent to Earth to live as humans, and they're just kind of like normal people, but they don't know how to do it right. And I was like, I kind of like that. It's kind of funny. And the original concept was that they were going to have it was going to be like one or two of these gods, and they have this like normal roommate. So if you've seen that, the thing that Marvel did with Thor, when like they were like, oh, why isn't he in this movie? And they filmed a thing with Chris Hemsworth where he's like living in some house in Australia.
It's with the it's so bad that I know this, because it was like a side thing.
Yeah, it was a side thing.
It was with Coulson. Like, oh no, it was with some random guy.
Yeah,
so
some random dude. Yeah,
and they
it's
interacted.
So funny.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
So it's like that.
I think it's possible that Jano saw it and was like, I kind of like that. It's possible we could turn that into our own thing. So I think he originally saw that and was like, cool, I like that. So he came up with this concept. We then had months left of school to finish, and we had to finish all of our thesis films and short films and whatever, which we did. And then pretty much as soon as we graduated, we didn't get to graduate because we went into lockdown at, about halfway through last year. So we went into lockdown and he started writing. He then picked up a number of other writers. I don't know how many because I wasn't on board at that point, but he picked up, I think, like 5 other writers, and they pretty much fleshed out 6 episodes worth of series. And then at some point was like, hey, so you remember that thing I pitched you? We're kind of doing it. Do you want to be DOP? Because that's my thing. And I was like, dude, yes. Get me on board. I mean, I say yes to everything anyway, but
you obviously,
I really wanted to be part of this.
You knew about this. You'd probably thought about, well, if I was on board, what would it look like?
Yeah.
You think all those things.
And it's probably one of the biggest things I've said yes to, because it's, we started filming in February. We filmed like 20 days worth. Like pretty much no other project that I've done for free I've done for that long. Most stuff is a couple of days if it's a short film. So it's a big thing to say yes to. So I then jumped on board in pre-production. I helped with writing. Well, maybe not the writing. I kind of helped. I was more of a writing assistant. I was there in the writer's room and I would pitch them other jokes and alternate things. And I'd be like, I think this could work better for the rewrites. And then we started filming in February. And then we've now, because we're all working for free, it makes it difficult. We have to schedule people. But if we're doing it for free, that means it's people. It's not work. It's essentially volunteer, which means people are doing it on their day off. So we had one full week where we filmed 6 days, 10-hour days, so 60 hours in that first week.
Wow.
For free, yep. And then we've done another 13 random shoots since then on Wednesdays and Sundays, because those are the days that Yano has off. So he works on his days off. And it's really the only reason it's taken this long is because we're not getting paid, so it gets difficult trying to schedule people.
Yeah,
We didn't think it was going to take this long.
Yeah. How many people are on board that aren't getting paid?
Everyone.
Yeah, but
No
how
one's
many
getting paid.
people is that?
Oh, it kind of changes from shoot to shoot because, again, if you're not getting paid, people are going to kind of show up just when they can. There are only 2 people that have been to every single shoot. That is Yano, the creator, writer, and main actor of the show. And then there is me, the DOP.
I think the like thing that maybe some people are overlooking is the fact that this is free. Like, none of you are getting paid. The level of sacrifice to create this comedy series is like insane.
I don't think I've ever done something that sacrificial. Fact.
Insane.
Well, I'm not even sacrificing that much. I'm sacrificing my time.
Which is the most valuable thing.
I mean,
I
I
would
suppose
argue.
yes,
Mm.
but arguably the creator of the show is sacrificing his time and his money. He's having to fund it himself.
which
we
that's-
haven't crowdfunded or anything.
That's what I find amazing as well. And do you find in like being a part of this production now, do you find like in the self-funding projects that it's almost like, because knowing that you're going to get to a point where you're successful and you work on projects that have lots of funding, do you almost love these days because it's like we need to be really creative with how we build these sets and how we do these things, because it's like, oh, we can't just build this set that we need with all this money that we don't have. So do you love that side of it?
I think that's something that applies to a lot of the arts, but kind of just, I mean, particularly the arts, but everything in general, is that limitations actually force creativity. If you are given restraints for something and you have to make it fit within those constraints, you have to work harder to make it more creative so that it can fit those constraints. For our thesis films for film school, we were given a maximum of 7 minutes. And a lot of people had short films that were supposed to be something like 15. And how do you cut it down?
And that's like, it doesn't seem, it's only like cutting 8 minutes, but that's 50%.
Yeah.
Like that's straight in half you have to cut, which is like almost
Completely.
impossible. Yeah.
Mine wasn't too bad. Mine was 7 pages, which means approximately 7 minutes of film. So that's easy. But then my problem was that mine, if you were to read it on paper, would think, you're probably going to need a decent sized budget for that, which is the problem that I ran into because we were given a small amount of money by the school and we could also put some of our own money into it if we wanted to, which I ended up doing. But my script revolved around a restaurant. And we had a production design class where we were going through them all. And the production design teacher that we had that day said, why don't you get a restaurant? And I was like, how am I going to get a restaurant? It's a nighttime scene. What, even if I go in the middle of the week, not that I could do that because we had scheduled shooting blocks. My days were Friday, Saturday, Sunday. How am I going to get a restaurant on a
that's
Friday,
peak.
Saturday, or Sunday night?
Yeah.
What, I'm going to rent out the entire restaurant, hire, not even hire because I can't afford it. What, get a bunch of extras to sit in the background to make it look realistic as a restaurant, or what, just let random members of the public in the background sit there? Like, it's just
Definitely not
impossible. I
viable.
can't do this. So I ended up having to turn the living room in my house into a restaurant.
No. What?
So I ended up having to, this was my solution, and all the teachers said, this is a terrible idea, it's going to look like a house. And I was like, well, I don't really have another choice.
Yeah. You had to just
But
do
the
it, yeah.
limitations force creativity. So I ended up going to a party hire place, hiring a bunch of tables, a bunch of tablecloths, a bunch of chairs. I went to IKEA and bought battery-operated candles just for safety on set, and also just so that it's not inconsistent with the wax moving up and down between cuts because time passing. And I moved all of the furniture out of the room in our house. It was a decently sized room, and there was like a tiny kind of bar in the back, but my dad had pulled it apart because he was going to rebuild it. There was no tabletop on it. It was literally just a brick wall, half brick wall sticking out in the corner. I then kind of got all my main actors. I tried to get extras, and of course, you're not going to really get anyone that wants to volunteer their time to sit in the background and not do anything. There was a slight sacrifice there, but I ended up turning my living room into a restaurant, and you look at it, and even my parents, whose house it was at the time that we were filming, they look at it and be like, it doesn't even look like our own house. Like, I just don't recognize it.
That's amazing.
So actually nailed it in the end.
What did the teachers
Yeah, I was
think?
about to say that.
I don't know, because we finished it and then didn't get to graduate. We went into lockdown, and then when we did have our graduation, it was pretty limited, so there wasn't really anyone there. So I didn't really get much feedback on it. But people that have watched it since, I've been like, oh yeah, that's my living room. They're like, what?
They're like, no way.
No
Yeah.
way.
That's amazing.
That's so cool. But yeah, I love that. I think that's really good about like starting off, or like, if you will, like the come up. Is like it actually forces you to just be more creative. And that's where the knowledge comes from, right? Like that's how you learn
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
And
that's
it's
what you're
fun.
learning.
It makes it so fun.
It's so fun.
Because you wake up and you're like, all right, what problems are going to arise today? What are we going to have to figure out? Another thing I really want to touch on, as you were like mentioning the story of using your house as the film set, one thing I never would have thought of that you just like picked up on straight away was the fact that if you used a real candle, that like because of the wax, the level would drop in between cuts. Like
That's
that attention to detail. Like, has that something you've always had, or have you developed that through the work you're doing?
Oh, no, it's only in doing it that you realize those kind of really dumb things sometimes that you would never think about when you're watching something. You also don't think about it when you're filming, and we've had that problem in the past. That's just kind of practice. And usually, if you were to do a high budget set thing, you've got someone specifically dedicated to continuity, which is their role is very specifically to keep things exactly the same between takes, so that when you swap between the cuts, when you're editing around, even if you film the scene half an hour apart to do different sides of it, it's going to match. Whereas if when we're filming stuff for this series,
No budget, yeah.
we don't have that. There is, there was one day that we literally only had the creator of the show, Yano, there was me, and then the sound guy. That's it. There was only the three of us. And we were filming stuff just of the creator because he's the main actor in it. So we were just filming scenes with him on his own. We don't have people to run the set. We don't have people to check for continuity. We kind of have to do it ourselves. Yeah. And a philosophy that, we've just finished our 19th day of filming, one philosophy that we've just kind of come up with is we're going to do our best, but continuity is going to be a mess. And we're fine with that because if people are going to watch it, hopefully they'll know it is a $0 budget show. Yeah. Meaning there are going to be flaws in it because we just don't have the budget to keep things perfect. But it kind of makes it interesting in its own way.
Definitely, especially if you know that it is that it's just way more interesting. Is there any plan to is it like you create it, post-production's done, it's set up, does he plan to sell it or
We're hoping so.
Okay. Yeah.
Either to sell it
or air it for free
or get funding for season 2. Or both. That'd be great because then I could get paid for all of the 19 days I put into.
Yeah, that'd be sick.
But I'm again maybe biased because I'm DOP and I think I'm pretty good at my job. But not only that, I think I've done a good job for cinematography purposes for what it is. We've very much embraced the no budget theme of it. So not to say that it looks low budget. We're trying to make it look high budget.
Of course.
If you watch it, you'll be like, oh yeah, it's not done in a studio. They haven't built a set for it. We've done it in a real house. We've done it on real locations because we just don't have the budget to film a set. But not only that, I think the concept of it is so good.
I was about to say.
Yeah, so they ended up changing it to 3 of the gods who are friends. There's a 4th one who is the sister of the main guy, so there's 4, I guess. They don't have a normal housemate. There's just the 3 of them living together. And
so the concept is that now.
Instead of having there's 3 gods, but they don't have powers and they don't know how to be human. So the entire series is about them trying to get their powers back and along with that, trying to get their status back with that. And all of the humor comes from them not knowing how to do anything and them almost always being low status. Kind of just no idea what's going
juxtaposing
on.
what they're trying to actually do. Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be a comedy series that is for everyone. It is very much my kind of humor, which is dumb humor.
Yeah, no, I love that.
If you watch stuff like Brooklyn Nine-Nine, it's written humor, and it's funny, it's entertaining. But sometimes you can sort of see the lead up to a punchline, and then you see the punchline, and you're like, "That's funny," but also it's very much a written joke.
That's an easy watch though, which
I think
there's a huge market for
Yeah.
that. As you said, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, that show is hilarious. I've
huge.
watched all of the.
It's very.
How many seasons are there now? 8?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've watched. Oh, I don't think I've watched the last 2. Maybe.
No, it's a good show. But ours is not that.
No,
ours,
of course.
Ours is kind of the opposite type of humor, where it's all out of left field. It is stupid. It's so dumb.
I'm so excited.
I'd say part of if you've seen The Office, you'll know that a lot of the show is written and it's very intentionally written, but a lot of it is kind of like Michael Scott's humor when he's misunderstanding a word, and he thinks it's one thing. One of the greats of all time is well, I'm not superstitious, but I am a little stitious. Yeah. It's that concept of just sort of it's so dumb, but that's what makes it funny, and that's the entirety of this series. It's ridiculous, and the more that we film, the kind of more bizarre and weird we go with it,
because you're in that environment. You're almost filming it, and then you're like, oh no, this could be
let's add this, let's change
that. You're going into it more, which is so cool. That's good though.
Pretty much constantly on set, we're how can we make this funnier? And it really got to a point where we're just it is completely not based in reality anymore. It's like the humor is ridiculous. They are so over the top. That to the point that we ended up having to go back and refilm one of the scenes.
Wow.
Because it was the first scene that we shot on the first day of filming. The actors didn't know what the characters were, and I didn't know what the look of the show was. We were all just kind of figuring it out. And so we filmed that first scene. We filmed for the rest of that week. And then we were going through the footage, and we did a rough cut of that very first scene. And it just wasn't good. For a first scene, and it was the first scene of the first episode, so it has to be good. It has to be engaging. And we watched it, and we were like, the characters don't really know who they are. And it's pretty clear. And it's also nowhere near as heightened as the rest of the show that we've filmed. Like, it gets very weird. So we ended up going back and we ended up also rewriting the scene too. And I pitched a bunch of extra jokes that we added just to give a little bit more context. Because I kind of started being like, all right, we're starting now. And I was like, surely you make it like that there's a little bit more context that you're thrown into it. So the first episode, the pitch is essentially that they are coming up with ideas to get their status back. And they land on this idea of making a viral video and trying to come up with something funny that will go viral to make them famous. And in the original one, they're just like, oh, how can we become gods again? Let's make a viral video. So now the newer one is that the main guy, Mars, is like, all right, guys, we've tried 485 ideas. None of them have worked. Pluto, what's your idea? And Pluto's like, oh, we could do the flyers again.
Yeah.
Like, no, not the flyers.
Flyers
We're
again.
not doing that again. And, okay, 486, come on, we're going to come up with something good, and then they land on viral video. So it just kind of gives it a bit like, okay, they've been on it for a while.
What they're trying to do. Yeah.
Is there any sense of, like, obviously the show's there for entertainment, but is there any sense of, like, education or purpose you can install? Because personally, I find watching TV shows, like, I've watched a lot. Like, when I was younger, I used to watch heaps. And I always found that I would learn so much from the shows as I would, like, stick with them throughout the seasons, because you really see the character development and, like, there's a clear, like, path of direction with those characters. And, like, I think something important you can learn from that is not attaching, like, your self-worth to, like, your exterior. Like, clearly for these Roman gods, it was, like, the fact that they had their powers. That's where their self-worth was. And now that that's gone, it's like, who am I now? Like, is there any sense of what can we teach people? How can we...
You have identified exactly what the series is.
Yeah.
The first episode was quite deliberately written so that Mars, who is the main character, is kind of annoying. And he is throughout the whole series, but he's really obnoxious. He is not a likable character, besides the fact that he's really funny. But, like, as a person, if you were to know him, you'd be like, you are not a good person. I don't want to hang out with you or talk to you ever. But, at the end of the first episode, it's written in that he has because he kind of argues with his best friend, Pluto, who he lives with. They argue all the time. And at the end of the first episode, they wrote it in that there's this really heartfelt scene where Mars is actually like, you know what, look, like, I'm sorry that I say all this stuff. I'm just like, this is bothering me. I just want to, be where we used to be. And they have it like a nice moment. And I remember filming it and I was like, this is so not like Mars. And then Yana was like, yep, but if we don't put it in, no one's going to watch the second episode because they're going to hate Mars. He had, like, you kind of need that redeeming quality. 100%. And so then that's the first episode. And then over the 6,
Slowly
it's about
develops.
him learning to be who he is without his status and power, and that he is his own person, and that he's got validity, and that we all do.
Because he's right. Like, that's where the investment is. When you watch, like, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, it's like, are Jake and Amy going to get together? Like, I want to see that happen. That's why you're invested. That's why you, like, stick around. Yeah, it's funny, but I can also watch a million other things that are going to make me laugh.
It's just short-term humor.
There's only, like, one Jake Peralta and Amy Santiago. Like, there's only one of those, and I want to see that develop. So I think, having that character development is so important, because that's what will keep you coming back.
Totally agree, yeah. Story is king. It can be shot very averagely, as long as you can hear what they are saying. The sound is average too. Obviously, you want those things to be good, but at the end of the day, the only thing that's going to get people to stick around is story. And that's what I try and push when I'm doing stuff like music videos, is that, I've had artists be like, oh, let's do a video on a green screen and we'll put, like, funny things in the background. I'm like, cool, but it's going to look the same for the whole 4-minute video. What is going to get people to stay around? I did a music video recently where he was like, oh, I want to do this music video kind of like this. And I was like, what's the story? So I did one for an artist, Volley K, who's on The Voice. He's come out with this new single. Yano was the director of it. We pitched this idea to him, to the producer and Volley K. And we were like, look, you could do whatever you want to do, because he's kind of like rapper, singer-songwriter. And I was like, you could do whatever you want to do, cool, but we think you need a story, and that's what people are going to want to watch for. And we ended up writing a story where he's moved into a new apartment and he's putting all these pictures on the walls with, all these connotations. And the song is essentially being yourself, loving who you are for the people that, are bullied and, different. Don't worry about what people say to you.
Well, the only music videos I think I've ever watched, or remember at least, are the ones that have that sort of storyline throughout that you notice. It's like someone, like anything from a 3 minute to those old Michael Jackson ones, like that film Moonwalker. Yeah. That there's, I think it's Smooth Criminal, the one where it goes for 12 minutes, 20 minutes, and it's just this whole thing, and the song goes for 4 minutes, but it's a whole story and short film on it. And it just makes the song so much more memorable.
Yeah. So
instead of just
what
you do,
instead of having Volley K just move into an apartment and put pictures on the wall, we're set up an apartment. Cool. That's not super interesting. So we gave it story. We have pictures. We got him pictures of him as a kid that we were putting up on the walls. And then in the second verse or the bridge or something, we got his mum to come in and help bring in more pictures and hang up a picture of them together and have a really heartfelt moment, giving it story. And then another one that I did is about this a breakup. And he was like, oh, I want him to be upset. And I was like, well, there needs to be more to that. Humans,
because everyone's upset when you break
story.
Up.
If you just kind of are showing stuff, it's not going to be interesting forever. You need something to actually keep you engaged. And the only thing that's going to keep you engaged is a story.
Do you try and make it personal to them? In terms of say how many, you seem to have done a couple of music videos. Yeah. So do you make it personal to that artist, or do they sort of have a song and then you make it personal to that song? If that makes sense.
It's a collaboration.
Yeah,
Everything is, especially with artistic things. If you're not collaborating, then you're not doing it right. You could have a director for a music video come in and be like, this is how we're doing it. And the artist will be like, well, this is my song. I don't really think that fits the vibe. And if you have the director being like, nah, this is, no, this is what we're going to do. This is going to be really good. The artist isn't going to be on board with it. The crew might not be on board with it. People are going to butt heads and it's going to create problems. So if you try to collaborate and bounce ideas off each other, it's going to be a better product. And it's something... I've been listening to the Office Ladies podcast because I kind of love The Office. And one thing that they said was sort of really important on their set for The Office was best idea wins. Or maybe it was The Good Place podcast, talking about The Good Place. I don't know. Anything that Michael Schur has written, kind of love it. But their motto was... best idea wins. It doesn't have to be the one writer of that episode that comes up with everything. If you've got someone on set, a production assistant, and it's their first day, they're in the background. Their job essentially is to get coffee or, run things different places, get a battery, whatever. If they have a brilliant idea that no one else has thought of and it's going to be funny, it's going to be useful for the story, it's going to be the best idea that everyone's got, why would you not use that? It doesn't make sense to turn that down and be like, oh, well, actually, no, you're just a production assistant. We're going to get the idea from the writer or director because they're the ones that know better. It's no, best idea wins. And I wholeheartedly agree with that.
Because you have to add your flavor to it, right? You can have that persona and be that really well-established producer or director, whatever it is. But that doesn't mean that this guy that has never, hasn't got the credibility.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that he couldn't have the best story.
Totally.
So I think it's super important to be open-minded as you are, and just take any and all ideas. So on that, what is your inspiration? What directors, what producers, who do you look up to and who do you pull from?
So here's a controversial thing, especially going through film school. I hate films.
What?
I don't like watching films.
Wow.
Really bothers me. It's probably a cause of social media in recent times. My attention span is so low. I am willing to give a movie an hour, which I think is generous, but I will give a movie an hour. If it doesn't catch me in the first hour, I'm giving up on it. So even super classic films that everyone says these are the best films of all times, like Pulp Fiction by Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah, right.
I have tried probably 3 times to watch that film. I've seen the first hour 3 times, and all 3 times I've given up being I just don't care. None of this is interesting to me. I don't think Quentin Tarantino films are my style. That's kind of he's got quite a specific style, and that's what he's famous for.
Do you think it's just is it because of your attention span? Or you think it's because you're I would do that differently?
Not to say I think I could do it better because I couldn't.
Yeah, that's why I didn't say it. Because I thought you'd be oh, I don't think that,
Well, no, I don't think I could do it better. But there's really, in film, there's no right or wrong.
Yeah,
right?
It's the creative freedom.
Yeah.
Super subjective.
Completely. And there is always going to be an audience for something. When we were in film school, there was one guy in my class that wrote quite a controversial thesis film that a lot of us in the class pretty much said, you should not make this. This is kind of dicey. And we were expecting the teacher to say the same, and he didn't. And he said, look, there is a market for everything. This film will have its market. It's probably very, very niche, and those people would love this film, and everyone else is going to hate it, but that doesn't mean it doesn't have merit. There is an audience for it, but may I recommend, don't do this for your thesis film, because you kind of, for your first proper short film, you want to do something a little bit more well-rounded that majority of people are going to like and that kind of stands you apart. He ended up making it, but kind of making some changes so it was a little bit less dicey, and it ended up quite a decent film.
So would you say you learn more so by doing, or like, is there anyone that inspires you? Any producers, anything that you're like, oh, I love their style, I love the way they do things? Or
there is 2 directors that I really love, which is Edgar Wright. So he has done the Hot Fuzz, the Cornetto trilogy, which is Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, and
the Paul?
World's End, or
not
Outward's End. That's Pirates of the Caribbean.
No, Paul doesn't count.
The End of the World, something.
Yeah.
So he did this. That's the Cornetto trilogy, and then he's gone on. He did also Scott Pilgrim vs. the World and Baby Driver.
Oh, yeah.
He's got quite a specific style, and
that movie?
it's quite clean, which I really, really love. And also, you'll see why I like it. It's very fast paced. It goes from one thing to the next. It does not waste time.
True.
But also, like, even with that, like with Baby Driver, I kind of hate the forced love interest. The story, I love the action sequences with the driving. I was like, they're so clean. They're all perfectly timed with the music, which I love. Yeah. When I'm doing anything to music, I'll cut it to the beat because I love it. Because I'm also a musician. Like
Baby Driver? Watch it. Such a good movie, dude. It's such a good movie.
I mean,
you'll love it.
Look, here's the thing. I also kind of hate. I'm not going to say hate because you just did it. But I think the notion of, what do you mean you haven't seen this? You have to see it. It's like everyone says that about everything. Like
that is true.
You know, it might not be for you. You might hate it, but I think it's a calm movie.
Well, I
think it is a good film. I just kind of hate the forced love interest.
It's because I think I say it like to specific people. Because like I know you so well, so I'm like, you have to see it.
We're the same very much. Like whatever he likes, I like. So vice versa for the most part.
Yeah, for like 90% of things, more I'd say. It's just like if I like it, you're gonna like it. That's why I would say it to him. But yeah, I hate that too. If people are like,
so Edgar Wright's pretty good. I like his films. But again, I disagree with some of it, and that's fine because people are gonna love things.
Yeah, you're not gonna love all of it.
The other one is Christopher Nolan.
Yes,
dude.
Very popular, but I think kind of for good reason. He makes some really incredible films. So Josh, you actually recommended me to watch Memento, because we were talking about this when you were having a look at my car. I ended up watching it, loved it, super confused, and incredibly overwhelming.
Look at you, hey?
Recommended the guy that doesn't like movies.
Exactly, like I have a pretty high standard, and I think I really love films that are unique, and that really is unique.
Very unique.
I mean, he is unique in all of his films. I particularly love Interstellar and Inception. I think that both of those are really great. Tenet, I enjoyed the concept. I like what he was doing with it. I just didn't like particularly the explanation of how it works and the sound mixing. I think maybe it's just because he is super high budget and can do whatever he wants.
You said he was purposeful with the audio, right?
Yeah, so he does it intentionally.
Well, he does everything intentionally, it seems.
Absolutely. I can see that he does. And this is where, again, I disagree with things, but he says that if you mix the dialogue in with the sound of the world, like the sound of other people talking nearby, of the sound effects of, a train going nearby, or when they're on the boat, all the ocean stuff. He tries to hide the audio, but mix it at the same level, so that his logic is that you have to concentrate so that you can hear the dialogue, which means you're more invested in the movie. That's his reasoning for it, and that he thinks it makes you more invested. But for me, I don't have good hearing. I unfortunately have inherited some of my mom's genes, which is terrible hearing. I can't distinguish sounds. If you've seen The Office, Nate, in later seasons, he's like, I don't have a hearing problem. Like, I don't technically have a hearing problem, but when there's lots of sounds going on, I can't really hear a particular thing. That's kind of me.
You have that.
So, for watching Tenet, I couldn't hear anything. And I had no idea what was going on. I had to figure it out on my own, and it kind of bothered me. And for me, that's like a little bit obnoxious, because it's, not really taking into account everyone's enjoyment. It's like, I think this is how it should be enjoyed. And it's like, well, let people enjoy it how they want to enjoy it.
Everyone enjoy it. Yeah.
I think, like, the best thing about that, and like the best thing about everything you've been saying, is you take things from other people, but ultimately, like, you're solid in yourself and your ideas. I think a lot of people, we like to think that everything we do and think is like our own thoughts, our own ideas, but like for the most part, they're not. And I think there's a danger with a lot of people, like, ultimately never having their own authentic thoughts and just accepting a belief or accepting a thought just because someone they like and they admire says or believes that. But clearly there's all these amazing accomplished directors in the world, but like, you find what you don't like, you find what you like, and you know what it is that you like and what you want to create. And I think that is like, for you, like, going to be one of the biggest keys to your success, because like, you're staying in your lane and you're being genuine to yourself.
Well, I think there's something probably even more important than that, which is not saying that I'm right and someone else is wrong.
Yeah.
I think everyone's right. Everyone has their own opinions, not about films, but anything that is opinion based, I think no one's wrong.
Yeah, that's cool that you think that, because I feel like that maybe even stems from your work in film. Is that like that whole industry is, like you said before, with the guy who had the controversial like film idea. It's like that wasn't wrong. No. Yeah, and like maybe that transcends into like the way you just live day to day. It's like you start to realize that the way like you do film is like the way everyone should be doing life. It's like there is no wrong. It's just everyone has their own sort of truth sometimes. But yes, there is facts every now and again.
What's the benefit in thinking that you're better than everyone else?
Yeah, it doesn't get you anywhere.
Everyone's the same. We're all living life. So everyone's going to have their own opinions, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that.
Well, it's like certain controversial people, it's like people will tell you don't watch that person, or that person's like doesn't like have the right views and whatnot. I can't think of who, but like just
Andrew Tate.
That's exactly what I'm thinking of. Just didn't want to mention it, but like, you know, that's the thing at the moment. It's like people talking about him.
Ultimately, like, we don't even know what his morals are, because all we see is like the 5% of his life that he posts.
I see clipped things that you can see cut. Like, it's not. You don't even know who he is. Like,
that's the biggest thing. People take social media and they attach that to your persona. If you knew nothing about me and you just went through my socials, like, so many people just be like, all right, that's who Josh is. Like, that's who Josh Van Sweden is. Whatever he outputs, that's it. And it's like, no, it's not. That's literally like, no. If you like had to accumulate the percentage of how much of my life is on social media, it'd be like way less than 1%.
Mine's like 0.1. I never post. It's really terrible because I'm in film. I need to post. I have a company that I'm supposed to post for. I just don't.
That's the same as me. I didn't have socials until, well, I did when I was younger, but then I didn't until we started doing this, because I was like, I actually need it.
It's a tool now.
It's a tool. I need to use it. But it's like, unless it's on our account, it's like I'm not posting on my own, because I just like, I don't know. I don't think about I don't think about taking photos wherever I'm going, because I'm like, I just want to enjoy the moment. That's what I've done for ages. But it's like, yeah, I don't post any of my life, so it wouldn't be on there, which is crazy. It'd be like for us three being in that same basket. I wonder what it would be like to actually post every day of your life. Like, I wonder what that's actually like.
And for some people, that is their job. They get paid for it, and that's their passion.
That's crazy. Yeah.
That's great for them. I wish I got to do that.
Yeah, how good is that? Yeah.
So we've talked a lot about me and my passions and what I do and some of my morals and beliefs. I'm curious to know, what are your passions and how did you get into them? Because you always ask everyone else about what they do, and you ask them some really great questions. I think you're genuinely inquisitive people. You're not doing this because we're doing a podcast. You have to ask questions. I think you actually are both people that just want to learn, which I think is fantastic.
With or without the mic, the same.
100%. Yeah. Well, we've known each other for that long, since we were like 14. So we've sort of grown up together. And like, obviously that comes with intertwining sort of your personalities and stuff like that. And over time, I've just become more and more curious as I got older and older. And I know that's the same for Josh. And like sort of aligning like that. And I was sort of at a crossroads with my like studies and work. I worked at like McDonald's, moved all the way up, and then like was at a certain position.
Almost
all the way up, not at the top. So like stayed at a certain position, and then I knew it was sort of time for me to move on and do something else. And I knew with my studies, I didn't want to actually get any sort of job going on from that, because I just thought it would be too tied down, and it's just not how I function. So then I pretty much came to Josh and was like, look, dude, like, it actually stemmed off, like, my initial thought was like, it stemmed off our relationship before anything else. So we didn't even know we wanted to do this before. Like, this wasn't the idea. The idea was doing something together, because we were both so curious. And we knew that we'd be able to function well together. We have a really good, like, honest sort of relationship. And we gel quite well on a lot of stuff. In terms of passion, the passion is actually just, it initially came from doing something together and doing it because I know we do it really well together. And I know that we have similar drive / motivation So I knew that would come out whatever we did. If we did it together, I knew it would be 110% passion, drive, all that put into it.
And just genuine based. Like, we're never going to corrupt ourselves. I think before we were talking about like doing a podcast with someone that was going to be like filtered, and we're like, do we even want that? Like, do we want to have a product where someone truly isn't being their raw self? And we're like, I don't think we do. Just purely for the fact of like, we're about like preaching vulnerability and people genuinely being vulnerable, which means like being authentic at the same time. So like, I don't know if I want to speak to someone and share something where someone isn't truly being themselves, which is like, it's a very fresh thought. So it's something I'll think on and truly process. But those are my initial thoughts on that. And I think in terms of like passion and hobbies and things like that, I've always just been curious. I think like from a young age, I had like really bad anxiety in primary school. Was like in and out of hospital, developed like a twitch, and then like a breathing thing through that.
Yeah, you mentioned in the episode.
Yeah,
with
Finn
Finn.
Hutch.
Yeah.
Number 18.
Finn. Yep.
Yeah, so went through all that, and then once I got over that, and like it was nothing because I was so young, I don't remember it, or like in the moment it's just what I thought life was, so it wasn't that bad. But yeah, after getting through all that and being older, I think I just found a love for like physical activity and sport, and then like finding like people like David Goggins, Cameron Haynes, those sort of people. I'm like, man, what they're about's awesome. I love that, like just get after it mentality and grind and stuff. It for me, it's just like a lot of physical outlets, and then I've like naturally always just been a curious person. I've loved talking to people. I've been that guy that like, I've had my core group of friends, but I'm like friends with, like, have a lot of friends. I'm friends with everybody kind of thing. Just because I'm like, man, like, just because I know these people and they're familiar doesn't mean all these other people aren't going to be awesome as well. And then like finding yes theory and loving what they stand for, like seeking discomfort. And I'm like, man, like, I just love all of these things. And like, these align with me. And then, yeah, when he came to me, it was like, well, this is cool. Like, I've never actually thought how I want to use these things that I love and like try and do something with them. And then, yeah, we started this, and it's been an awesome ride so far. And
it's so fun. Like, I think
so much fun.
It's us practicing the stuff that we always want to practice, but it's in some sort of like formal way. Because it's like Josh was saying, like I was the exact same thing. Found people like Goggins, Haynes, like all those types of people, and just absolutely like just loved that. Like any sort of like basic philosophy, like JP, like Jordan Peterson, absolutely love that guy. Like finding him and just like the way he looks at things, and just like, because I'm also naturally very curious, I just found so much interest in that. And I feel like I've always kind of seen something I notice sometimes is like, if like say you with a group of people and like you sort of start talking shit on someone else who isn't there, I'm always like, in my head, I'm always like the one person, or I always felt like I was like, oh, I feel like a bit uncomfortable doing this because I know they have something to offer. I always feel that uncomfortable like sense, because like that person is a person, like they always have something to offer. Yeah. But feeling that and just like being curious to talk to anyone. Like, so for us, like developing this, we'll actually talk to anyone, like on the pod. Anyone who we find out has a good story or whatnot, we'll have them on. So that too. What are you laughing at?
Hang on. Speaking of, I think it's very relevant now because you just brought it up, getting people on the pod. Did Josh tell you how I actually came on? I've just realized as you were talking about it. Yeah. We briefly talked about it before we started rolling. Yeah. But did Josh tell you actually how it kind of the precursor to me and Josh talking?
Well, Josh was fixing your car. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Yeah. A bit before that.
No.
I saw that you guys had posted. It was a clip from when you were talking to the guys that do the music. So I started listening to the podcast.
He lit us up. Yeah.
And in the first couple of episodes, you guys were talking about, pushing yourself to do things that you're not comfortable with, branching out, doing something new. And your challenge to each other and to your listeners was do something you're not comfortable with and try it. Your suggestion was, run a different route, run on the beach.
Yes, I remember that. Yeah.
And I had planned for Josh to have a look at my car. He had a look at my old car, ended up having to sell it. And I ended up getting a new one. And I was like, oh, Josh, could you just do a service on it? And we were just going to meet at a cafe, which is what we did last time. He was going to grab my car, take it back to his, do the work on it, bring it back to me, and I would just like work on my laptop in the cafe. And I was listening to the podcast, and you were saying, do something you're not comfortable with. And I was like, damn, I guess I got to do it. Yeah. So I messaged Josh and said, hey, so I've been listening. You say do something you're not comfortable with. Would you mind if I actually brought my car over to yours and learnt from you? I don't really know anything about cars.
Yeah.
Really basic stuff.
That's so awesome.
Why not?
Like, getting that message made my week. I was like, there is no way that like something we've done has like impacted somebody, but then also like actually impacted me by you saying like,
yes, because it's almost selfish. Because like that's happened a few times now when someone says something like that, and it's like it still has the same effect. Like it's still like just
It's
amazing.
wild.
It's so cool to see that, like, and we're not doing anything special. Like we're just two dudes and we're just like chatting shit. You know what I mean? Like we're not actually doing anything
But
particularly
we're just
special.
doing something. That's what it is.
That I was about to say that. It's just we're being intentional, and us being intentional seems to rub off onto other people. And it's like again, I'll state, we're not doing anything special. We literally rolled up. We're recording, talking. Like it's just nothing crazy, but the fact that it's intentional is what seems to be rubbing off on other people. That's so cool to hear, dude.
Yeah. So I showed up to Josh's, and while he was fixing my car, he was teaching me about what is going on and what he's doing and why. But also, we were talking. We ended up talking about the podcast, and Josh was like, "Would you come on? I mean, you can say this bit from your perspective. I don't know what it was like from you."
Yeah, no, well, like the initial approach is like, would you come on? And like in your suit of humility, it's just like I have nothing.
I got nothing to
I got
say.
nothing to
That's
say.
the usual.
It's the
Everyone
usual
says that.
response.
Yes, you do.
And I think it's super interesting because it just shows really how low people value themselves. Like that is ultimately what I'm finding out through asking people, would you want to come on? The people that are really hesitant, it's like, I have nothing to talk about. I'm not special at all. Dude, I don't need you to be like Oprah Winfrey. I don't need you to be David Attenborough. I just, like, we were on the curb talking for like an hour and a half, however long it was, about like what you're doing, the short film, the comedy series, talking about the podcast, cars, just life in general. And it's like, man, that was an amazing conversation. I learned a lot. Like, I'm hoping you learned something from that as well. And it's like, dude, why not record that and then put that, like, have a record of that and do something with that? So yeah, you were just initially like a bit reluctant because you, I think, undervalue yourself initially. But then once I was like, dude, it's everyone comes on. Like, we're no one.
Yeah.
Like, we're the guys that have the podcast.
Yeah,
we're no one.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
It's cool just because, like, yeah, most people, I think, yeah, it's not that you don't value yourself. Well, it is that, but it's also just that you feel like you have to be special to go on like this sort of thing, but it's like you just don't. Like,
You feel like there's a criteria that you have to meet, and you're like, I don't meet that.
and speaking to, you're saying there's I don't know how you said, I think it was like a market for every sort of film or an audience for every film. There's an audience for every like guest on the pod. You know, there's someone who's like you're at step 6. There's someone at step like 1 in a similar journey to you that's going, oh, this is what he did. I can take some inspiration out of that and go on my own way. It's like everyone's at a different stage, and it's like you're probably more so speaking to the people behind, or you're reminding people of, especially when we're talking about the you not getting paid, and it's like, yeah, the sacrifice and then the creativity that brings, right? Maybe there's someone who's a bit further along, and they somehow hear this or see some sort of clip, and then they're like, oh, I remember those days, and then it sparks something else. It's just intention. That's all it is, which is just like so contagious, and it's actually crazy to see it play out in real time. Because you can sort of predict it, but you can
never really, like, you can
yeah.
never predict, like, you can always imagine what it's going to feel like having someone say, like, man, this helped me, or this was amazing, but then actually seeing that message or, like, talking to that person, it's a completely different feeling.
Some mum messaged us on Facebook and was like, hey, like, keep posting videos, I send them to my sons. I was like, what the fuck?
That's amazing.
I was like, what? That's so cool. And, like, we're just rocking up. Like, we just planned this, rocked up, chatted about
It's
it.
wild.
So cool.
It's wild. But yeah, no, that, like,
That's the
being,
passion.
everyone has value to offer. Like, whether you're a garbage man or whether you're doing, like, film like you are, like, every single person has value to offer because, as Kyle said, the bare minimum is, like, somebody's following your footsteps because, like, a lot of people want to do cinematography. Yeah. So it's like one guy could learn one thing, and it's just so important to know that. And I think, like, a key lesson as well, the sacrifice, but also, like, the investment you have to put into yourself, into the gear. Like, it's like people just want that, like, immediate gratification. They want that big paycheck, but it's like, man, you have tens of thousands of dollars worth of camera gear, you're saying, and, like, you're only recently getting paid for that work. Like, you had to, like, all that money is just straight back into your business, straight back into, like, yourself. And it's scary, right? Like, was there a point of fear? Like, man, I'm about to make this massive purchase. I know I have no money coming in, like, but I really want to do this. What's that feel like for you?
It happened when I bought that camera. So the one that's currently filming you guys, that is a Blackmagic Ursa Mini Pro G2.
Sounds exy.
So the first camera that I bought is the one that's filming me right now. It's a Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K.
Okay, yeah.
And that's what I've been using for a number of years now. And it has been amazing. And there was only one job that I couldn't get because I didn't have a camera that had the specs they needed, which is a very technical thing. And it really bothered me. And I was like, whatever. And it's been great for everything else except for that one job. And I was like, look, if I want jobs like that in the future, I'm going to need a better camera. And so for years now, I've been wanting a decent sized cinema camera. And I've been looking at ones like this, and suddenly this one popped up on eBay. If you were to buy it retail, it's $8,500. It was on eBay for $5,000.
Oh,
and I was like,
yes, please.
That is still a very big investment for someone that is really not earning enough to pay for that. I had enough money in my account to pay for it, and I was like, look, if I get it, I'm resetting myself back to zero. And so I sat on it. It was on auction. You couldn't buy it immediately. It was on auction.
Okay.
So I was like, I have to wait for it to end. And I sat on it, and I watched a bunch of videos about how to auction on eBay correctly. And it is kind of counterintuitive, but I was like, I'm going to have to put my trust in these people. Essentially, they say, bid what your maximum bid is, and you will only pay slightly more than the second highest bid. And I was like, but if I'm putting in a bid, aren't I paying what I'm bidding?
Yeah.
Like, if you're buying a house, you don't like, if the auction person's like, oh, you know, like 1.5 million, you go, oh, I'll take, 2 million. And then they'll be like, cool, 1.51 million. Like, it's, no, you're going to pay 2 million because that's what you offered.
Yeah.
So I kind of had to put my trust in these YouTube videos, and I put on the listing, I was like, cool, I'm willing to pay, like, I think I put 6,300, which is everything I have. It then came up on the screen and was like, yep, you won.
Whoa.
I was like, that's terrifying. And then it was like, oh, also you pay 5,400. Amazing.
How good is that?
So good. But it was like, and I had told my housemate about it because I was so almost nervous about, I was like, I'm worried that I'll buy it and then be like, oh no, I've just bought this thing. I'm now regretting it that I have nothing. I've got nothing left now. And then after the auction, he was like, so did you get it? I was like, yep. And he was like, how do you feel?
Yeah.
That's a pretty big investment.
Yeah.
It's like the most expensive thing I own now. And I was like, I'm kind of excited.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Because, Cameron, you're willing to, like, think of how long it took you to get that amount of money. And it's like all that time and effort is how much that is worth to you.
Yeah. But I also see it as an investment for the future. Like, that original camera that I bought was $2,000.
Yeah.
And at the time, that was a lot because I was having to pay for school every month. So again, that pretty much ran my account when I bought it. And it has been the most useful tool that I've bought. Yeah. Like, I would go back and I would do it again. No hesitation, because it has been an incredible tool for me. And I am maybe not blindly hoping, but very much hoping that this is going to be the same, that I'm investing money into something that will do well for me in the future.
And I think it almost has to, especially when it makes such a dent in your account, like when it makes such a dent in your savings. It's like, all right, now I have to make it work, right? But if you have so much money and it's like you don't even notice it, then maybe there's no incentive to do it. But now it's like, okay, I really need to like use this camera to like get money coming back in. So I'm going to make it work.
So you can now see why I said, I'm going to film it.
Yeah.
I'm going to film our podcast using my stuff because I haven't used it yet properly.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that's great though. Like it's such a scary thing to really invest in yourself, in your business, but like you really have to. You have to if you want to get places. You got to level up.
And like I said before, I'm sticking with it. Whether it's going to work or not, I'm sticking with it. And worst comes to worst, I, for some reason, stop getting jobs completely and lose all my money. I can sell it. What does it matter? Like, especially with the price that I bought it, I can probably just sell it for what I bought it and I will not really be at a loss. But, you know, it's an investment for the future and hopefully it does me well.
Yeah, have you, like, anything you want to touch on? Any questions you want to ask us?
I've got a challenge for you.
Yeah,
Oh,
shoot,
yes.
I love this.
Now, this is a philosophy that I've kind of picked up from doing film work. I think it is good manners, but I think it's relevant everywhere. In that, I have a philosophy, you help me, I help you. Josh, I brought you my car, and I brought you 2 cars now, and you fixed one and did a service on the other one. You did that completely out of your own pocket and refused both times to take payment until I forcibly sent it to your bank account by getting your details from my brother, who knows you very well.
Standard visa.
Yeah,
I
like
love it.
genuinely good person trying to do something for other people. Like, you're a really good person, I think.
Thank you. I seriously appreciate that.
You did that for me, you know, from film school. If someone helps me with my film, they have given me 2 or 3 days of their time. I see it as only fair to give them 2 or 3 days of my time as well, because sure, money is a main resource that we use in this world, but at the end of the day,
time is way more valuable.
Time is way more valuable. It's a finite resource. We all only have so much of it, and everyone, it is exactly as valuable to each person.
Not to break your flow, but we actually discussed this in the last pod with Finn, because we were talking about time and how you barter with your time in terms of like relationships. So like your friendships, specifically we talked about. But like that's an interesting point. Is in like actually giving your time to help transaction. Yeah, that's what we talked about. Transactions between people.
Before you continue, like what you've done, like I'm just gonna highlight what you've done for us because it's been so much. So not only did you reach out to me about the pod and like inform us of like the low quality, like purely out of love and just desire to make it better.
No, I don't think it was low quality.
Yeah, but
just
how
perfectly
it was how it can be better. Helping us so much with that, like giving us so much information on the editing process and all of that help. But then also I sent you the proposal for the drive and I sent it to quite a few people and like I got good feedback from people, but you were the only person to send me paragraphs and paragraphs to go through the document, read through the entire thing, make changes where you thought like needed being changed, like grammar changes as well. And then also like giving your input of what you think would look so much better, like just as an overall proposal. And then every message you finish like off with like, you don't have to if you don't want to. This is just like what I would advise. And it's like that in itself is so much time and effort. And I'm so grateful for that. And then when you come on the pod, you're like, dude, let me set up all of my stuff. We were literally sitting here. It took you like, I don't know, 30, 40 minutes to set everything up.
A bit more. I had to set it all up last night.
Yeah.
I was going to say there's something more behind
so I didn't
the
have to be
scenes.
up at 5
Yeah,
this
behind
morning.
the scenes. So much time has gone into this and like, we're just so grateful.
Yeah, we can't
for
thank
that.
you enough. Like we were just sitting here twiddling thumbs while you set up our
See,
podcast.
but I can say the same to you, Josh. You spent hours on both of my cars completely for free. And I can endlessly say thank you because you saved me hundreds, possibly like $1,000 on going to a mechanic. So the way I see it is you help me, I help you. It works for film, but I think it works for everything. So my challenge to you
I haven't
is...
helped you, so I'm indebted. Yeah. I'm sure something will come up.
My challenge to you is if someone does something for you, do something for them.
Love it.
I think it is applicable in all aspects of life. It
100%.
could be something to do with your workplace. If, someone at your job, goes out of their way to do something for you, see if you can grab one of their tasks and do it for them.
Super scalable too. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be big.
No,
like we're
doesn't.
talking about pretty decently sized tasks and about what you two have how you two have transaction between you two. But it can be something so little that just like the fact that you've gone out of your way. It's the same thing. You've just stepped out of your way to be like, I'm actually gonna sacrifice my time for this person.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be big at all. Like you said, like if you are struggling, for anyone that's listening, struggling to come up with something, it could be living with your housemates or parents or family, whatever it is. If someone, does the dishes for you, go clean up the lounge room. Everyone wins. There is no loss in that scenario that I see. So
we can all do things.
That's one, and that is the one that I would mainly love you to do. But there is also a similar quote that's relevant from Kristen Bell, and she said it on the Good Place podcast. I love Kristen Bell.
Yeah.
She says, do something good and don't get caught doing it.
Easier Adesanya.
No, we always talk about this.
Oh, yeah,
we talk
yeah.
about like doing stuff, like even if it's like something that's selfish, like doing something for yourself. Say it is for someone else as well, but it can be for you too. It's like do something that's good, but just don't tell anyone about it.
We always talk.
We
we
always
preach the
talk about
mentality of
that.
nobody knows. I think that's when the best things come is like when you're doing it because you know why you're doing it then, because so many people do it for the recognition, do it just so somebody else can see them. But when you're doing it and absolutely no one's there, like that is when it's all right, cool, like I know why I'm doing it. I'm firm in my morals and my beliefs and my motives for doing this action.
100%.
But there was a thing I was going to say. So Izzy Adesanya, the UFC middleweight champ, he loves like doing things for people just like really spontaneously. So he'll like be at a gas servo and then he'll pay for a car, like another car as well as his car, and he'll drive off before that person gets to the counter. So it's like doing something and they just have no idea that he's just...
Because for him, he's obviously loaded.
Yeah, he's got a lot of money.
Like, his way of doing it is probably like, he probably did it in other ways before,
He would
but now he's
definitely,
like financially stable. He can do that. Yeah. So it's just like, it doesn't have to be financial,
Exactly. But it's just
like,
an example, and I love doing things like that because so often we just want to get that like immediate gratification from the other person being like, thank you so much. It's like, go through Macca's drive-thru and pay for the car behind you, like whatever it is, but something so small. Doesn't even have to be financial, as you said, but I do love the idea of that. That is awesome.
That's so sick. I had a brief snippet of a challenge, but I think we just run with that unless you've got something too. But
no,
I think they're great.
I guess I've already done mine.
Yeah.
Because I gave
Because you
Pat.
fixed my car twice?
No. No, it's like,
Yeah, he's already
so
done
like off topic, like minimal context. But Pat, our mate, he has like an indoor gym, a home gym, and there's a whiteboard in there. And I worked out like 2 days ago in there, and I just wrote on the whiteboard, if you're reading this, drop now and do 20 push-ups. And I was like, don't cheat yourself at the end. And it's just like, he walked in, obviously like I'd left, and he read it. And then I was with him last night, and he did it. And then he's like, oh, what does that say? And they're like, I knew what it said, so I didn't want to read it. And then I eventually read it, and he'd changed the push-ups to squats. And I was like,
so you changed it,
so I
you
did
had
it.
to do it.
But I love that. And it's like, I know, because I never would have seen that. Like, I'm envisioning what it would have been like when Pat walked in there, being like, do it. But like, I had no idea.
That's sick.
And I love that so much.
But yeah, dude, thank you so much for your time. It's been so good. We're keen to have you on again. Anything else you want to finish off with?
Yeah, do you want to, like, the comedy series, where's that going to be found?
No idea.
We don't know
No
yet.
idea, because you don't know.
Still not even done filming it.
What's it called?
So it's called Godly.
Godly. That's sick.
It's coming out. We're planning for it to come out sometime early 2023.
Okay.
So for anyone listening to this after 2023, it's probably available to watch somewhere.
Yeah.
It's at the very least, if we cannot sell it anywhere, we're just going to put it on YouTube and try and promote it ourselves.
Yeah, as much as you can. Definitely.
Of anything that I've worked on, it is easily, I think, the most enjoyable. I've seen like even just like rough cuts of things, and I just think it's so good.
Yeah. Well, when it does like come to a bit more fruition, like we'd love to have. I'm speaking for Josh, but I'm sure we'd love to have you back on with the writer as well. Like that'd just be so
Get me,
fun.
get Yano.
Yeah, but
he's very
you're
weird
so
and I love him for it.
Yeah, you're so deep in it, but it'd be cool to have you back on.
I would love to chat with him though, because
definitely.
I'm interested into the writing mindset, but also like as your career progresses. That's the beautiful thing with life and connections, right? So you're at stage whatever you're at, we're at stage whatever we're at in 2-3 years, we're all going to be further along, and it's like we can redo a conversation and it's going to be so much better. So different.
There's hindsight, like you've been talking about hindsight a little bit. It's like there's hindsight on the things that we've even got on record, which is so cool. Like to be able, it's like a visual diary of like what we've been through, and then we go to that next stage and it's even more insight. So I think that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm super excited. But yeah, thanks so much for coming on. I'm very keen to nail those 2 challenges.
Yes, sir.
Well, I was going to say one more thing.
Yeah.
Self-plug. I have my own video company. The shirt I'm wearing.
Yep.
Matt Black Media.
Yep.
Matt with an E on the end. My name is Matt. That's where the joke comes from. So people always spell it just with my name. But Matt Black Media. So anyone that needs...
That just...
I mean, anything. I've literally done all sorts of video work in all facets, and pre-production, post-production, actual production, video, audio, anything I can do.
Check the goat out.
Before we check out, I got a challenge for you.
Yeah, what's up? Let's go.
This week, it's like very spontaneous. Oh, sorry.
You have hair all over your face.
You're going to post on your socials this week.
No, here's the thing. No, I put
like
stuff on my stories.
To promote your career, not to promote like your life or just show your life, but like purely for Matt Black Media. Like that.
The difficulty is that I'm always behind the camera.
Yeah.
I don't have me in front of the camera. I mean, I do now. Just take a screenshot from this.
Yeah. Well, even if it's this, even if you repost one of these, it's just like it's still marketing.
There's going to be something like at the end of this in a week. There has to be something.
Well, I think everyone should post what they're doing.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
If you're doing something cool, especially for anyone that has their own business, I love that.
Yeah. It's just awareness.
I just love kind of supporting small businesses.
Yeah, you will be posting on your socials this week. Yeah. Matt Black Media. Everyone check it out.
Thank you, Matt Shepard. We'll see you.
Yep. See you in the next app.
Next year.
Next year.
when my series is out.
Yeah. Peace.
Love you all.
See ya.